might be live.
Are we live?
We're live.
We're doing it live.
We're live.
Hey! All right.
But are we awake is the really operative question.
That is a no. How many hours? I'm on like 3.5 hours of sleep, I think.
So like I knew going into a Kickstarter is it's sort of like having a new baby. So like going up to it, like getting it out is actually like a lot of actual labor, and then there's no sleep. And I keep late hours, so I tried to stay up, and I made it till about 7:15, as my text in the text chain probably let you know. And then I've just
yeah, I was like, oh great, Michelle's awake, this is gonna be great. And I was like, yeah, let's talk. And it was just like dead.
Nope. I am going to bed now. Here's my last little thing as I sign off, and then a couple of hours and now. So hi everybody, we have a Kickstarter. It's a whole thing, and this is very new for us and kind of stressful, and
Thank you.
Not a lot of sleep. This is extra special ridiculous. That would be why.
Yes, it is. We have zero sleep. We have squish brains. So please love us anyway.
Let's see. Like, where do we even start? So, like I just did an interview with someone. It'll be out in Wild Hunt later, probably next week. And like one of the things was like, so where did the project, like, where did the idea come from? And you know, it was really like you reached out to me and you're like, hey, I had a friend throw your book at me, and I read your book, and like stuff happened.
Yeah.
And like that's not an unusual story. Like people are always like, so my friend said I needed to read this Vampire Codex book, and like, wow, I don't know, I have questions. And I'm like, yeah, it's one of those books that if you read it, you will end up with more questions than you will with answers, which to me is the sign of a successful book. It's made you think.
Mm-hmm.
But very rarely do they then say, I am a filmmaker. Can I just document this journey?
This very, very vulnerable journey.
Yeah, like this incredibly personal thing of like digging deep into stuff that pretty much mainstream society is just going to say, like, we should just commit you now and save ourselves the trouble. Please, do not stop, go directly to the asylum, like get yourself an I Love Me coat and call it good.
What book is this?
Oh, the book we're talking about is the Psychic Vampire Codex. I wrote it in 1994. It was published unofficially as a 10th anniversary edition. That was a little sneaky. Weiser didn't want to have me be really clear that it already existed. Contract stuff. So there was a version that came out in 2004, and we are updating language and like adding some stuff. So we're re-releasing it probably the end of this year. With forward having another anniversary edition. Just a lot more to say. Maybe if I'm lucky in October 2024. We'll see. But there's other things going on, like Kickstarters, like all of this, like filming stuff and all the TV stuff, and it's all. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I read that book in 24 hours. I mean, I inhaled that book, and it was sort of just like a subject I didn't know anything about at all. And I've been down many of the woo side streams, but I hadn't gone deep down into vampirism, and I didn't think I'd be that interested. But it was more than just being interested. It was like literally physically compelled to not put the book down.
Well, and a lot of people would get hung up, especially when it first came out, and like, vampires, you think that you're like undead sleeping in coffins. And I'm like, well, I've
sleeping in coffins.
I've napped in a coffin, but only because I was in a high school production of Oliver, and the coffin was the one place to nap that nobody would mess with you.
Fair.
Ever want to fall asleep in a green room. I learned that once. I will never make that mistake again.
Why? Wait, what happened?
People start to prank you. Like you wake up with like paint all over your face, or like
shaving cream.
Yeah, like weird stuff where I'm just like, no, I just want to sleep. That's all I want. I played the widow corny, so I was like, I did a bunch at the beginning and a bunch at the end, and I had just this long period of nothing in between.
More queer representation.
Yeah, you know what? We should so like the vampire thing, I should cover a little bit of that. So a lot of people, if you've read my books, chances are like you've read like the Ghost Hunter Survival Guide or the Dictionary of Demons, or something. I've got a lot of books that are written more for public consumption, and while they dig into personal experiences and beliefs, they dig into like the sort of easily frontward facing stuff, dream walking, psychic experiences, spirit communication, stuff that's broadly acceptable within a certain niche. But like the vampire stuff really digs into very personal practice and some beliefs that are purely subjective. Like there is no way to pretend that there's like a way to test them or be factual about them. Like they are beliefs solidly in the realm of like, this is just how I interpret the world. Uh, and the Codex was the first book that I published. That was a purpose. Like I wanted to make sure like that book got out into the world before I did anything else. But then after that, and the more I got involved in television and whatnot, like there's just a whole lot of so Paranormal State, when they first pulled me on as an actual cast member, the episode was The Messenger, which has an irony all by itself. We'll get into that later. Spoilers. The crew is like, what do we tag you as? Like what do we call you? Because of course they, on the screen they're just like Michelle Belanger and like, and Chip was psychic medium, and I was like, well, vampire, and they're like, what? And I'm like,
yeah, did not compute.
and I'm like, well, shamanic, mystic, like, and I went through a bunch of different and all of them were like, that takes too much explaining. That takes too much explaining. Nobody's gonna get that. What psychic medium it is? And I was like, fine.
Whatever.
Fine. Because sometimes the label is less for me and more for you. But all of that has never stopped being like a tent pole, like tent pole. I can't speak English, by the way. It's
tent pole. Bill?
tent pole. Yep. There's a cartoon in my head. Draw that. That's been a constant and continuous part of my identity and my practice that has been the core of me. I mean, I founded a whole group around it. I run that group. And I'm the head of a secret society, or at least a closed practice initiatory tradition.
Mm-hmm. But secret society sounds cooler.
It sounds smoother than it really is. It's only a secret society because a lot of what we sit around and talk about is past life stuff, which is incredibly personal. If you're familiar with some new age language, soul group is another term that would apply to our group. And it does definitely get into things that are subjective and are personal. And I don't know, I've always walked this line of, here's what I'm experiencing and what I can report about it, and here's what I can interpret about it. Right. And then people are like, but what do you believe? And I'm like, that's a much deeper conversation that I can do 22 minutes of television, and I'm not even like the main person on this show. So all you all really want me to do is to walk in and say there's a ghost over there, she died doing this, and then I walk off and like they investigate. Like that's pretty much my shtick.
But it's a damn good shtick.
Yeah, but we don't go deeper than that.
Who is Fen?
Yeah, that's a good. So who is Fen?
Fen is me. So I am a host of Follow the Woo podcast. I'm a paranormal investigator. And when I met Michelle, I was, working in film in Los Angeles, and the industry shut down. So I was furloughed with everybody else who was working in the entertainment industry. And I started this podcast, and it opened all of these weird doors up for me. And so I've been basically like, I can't even tell you the weird shit that has happened since the podcast started and since I had the first conversation with you. I mean, it's just been like full speed ahead.
And that's why we have a whole documentary of it.
Yes. 100 hours of footage.
Last name for everyone, and if I might, like, where does it come from? Because I love that.
My last name is Alankush, and I am Turkish. Yes. And you are, is it French? Belanger.
Yeah. Belanger. I think we came over to the States so early that I think I should probably more properly call myself French Canadian or Acadian French.
Yeah.
The Acadian French were like a whole little thing. Although, yes, because we get asked this all the time. Me and Jeff Belanger are not directly related, but we are from the same subset of people who came over to the U.S. and Canada. There's a whole Acadian French thing. Down in New Orleans way, we're called Cajuns. There's a whole cultural thing that
Oh,
they were
that's
fleeing.
interesting.
They were fleeing France for a whole
Yeah.
like whole religious thing going on there. Like there was a very different practice.
Yeah.
Only some of which I've gotten via my grandfather, who's since passed on.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember you talking about that in our 5-hour podcast interview. Yeah, I think it was like 4 hours and 47 minutes, but I mean, like it was booked for an hour and a half, and we just were like, da, 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 da. And then we finally got to, some of your family stuff and Belanger, but I can't say too much about that because I'd be giving shit.
Right? Because
Yeah.
it's spoilers. Vampire, least complicated word one could use.
Yes.
Like that sounds like a punchline, and it really isn't. That's the
Not. Yeah. So, oh wait, I noticed the kids are mostly aimed at US folks. Yes, somebody asked me about this today.
Oh, a bunch of people are like, but what about the rest of us for shipping and things?
So yeah, I have spoken to someone else, and I don't know if you're here, that person, Sheila, but I am working on, you can change the perks, the reward tiers as the campaign goes on. So I'm working on putting together one that'll be just for international folks. So it'll basically mirror the Cryptid Insider, but we'll just kind of tweak it a little bit.
Yeah, I think I know for sure it has everything to do with postage.
Like, yeah, 100%. Yeah, 100%.
Especially
change the.
But it wrecks me. Like I'll do like these little games or these stickers or these one shots, and then somebody in Canada wants like 3 stickers, and it's $30 to ship it.
Yeah,
and I'm like, that just doesn't seem like here are $3 stickers, and paying $30 in shipping. That's first of all just wrong. Like why?
It is. We have so much technology.
I could drive up to Montreal and hand delivery.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Well, whoever that was, I forget. Thank you, Hugs from Utah. But whoever that was before, if you want to go on to the Kickstarter page, you don't have to be a backer to message us. And you can hop in there and message us so that I have your name and I can come back to you and figure out how much shipping would be to your address.
Yeah, that has been the single most thing, because there's a lot more than just U.S. folk who are into this, and we don't want to exclude people. We're just trying to make sure that it's fair for everyone. And I really hate being like, and that'll be $60 shipping.
Yeah,
just gave us.
Yeah, it's like $5. Yeah,
like it just seems like a sucker punch.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the other thing too that people have been asking me while we're on this, because I'm all up in the messages on the page, is if you want to pledge again, you can. So some people have been asking like, oh wait, I want the perks in this because they don't stack. Yeah. But I also want the perks over here. You can do that, but you have to just use a different Kickstarter account. So you just pretend to be somebody else, and then you are able to have double pledges. And that's the standard for pretty much every Kickstarter campampagn.
News to me.
Yeah. Me too. I just learned all this shit.
I'm also that person where like I've got most of the Kickstarters that I've backed have been in the gaming industry. And I am absolutely that Kickstarter person who's like, I just like this project and I like these people. So here, have $200. Yeah. If you send me stuff, that's cool. But if I never see it, that's fine too.
Yeah.
Like, do the thing. But I know not everybody's in that position either. Like,
yeah, and we do have cool perks. I mean, we have really great rewards, and the $99 tier, we only had a limited amount and they're gone, which is great because that was the energy reading with Tigris. So that was obviously a pretty popular one. We are thinking about creating another $99 tier too. So if if people have suggestions, again, you can just hop into the messages and I will listen to everyone.
Been using Miss Abri as a workhorse, but Have you seen the energy body reading stuff Abry does? I know you have.
I have.
Yeah, maybe we could convince Kat to be a tier reward.
Yes. Well, Kat is in one of them.
Okay.
Maybe a vampire aficionado, I think. And that's also a limited.
Like, I am not the one who put the Kickstarter together because I don't know that I don't think it would have been quite the same way organized. My brain's a conspiracy board in 4-dimensional space. We don't do linear very well.
What? Oh,
like imagine like the way I think. Like
here.
Heard me talking like it's associative. I go, like in multiple dimensions at once. So I guess my head's a TARDIS.
Yeah. What's a TARDIS?
Oh God. Time and relative dimension and space. It's a Doctor Who thing.
Ah, all right. That before my time.
Well, I mean, it's sort of, yeah, for those who will, if there are any Whovians watching, Peter Davison was my doctor. I mean, I came in at the tail end of the Tom Baker years, and he's cool and all, but I don't know. Davison like really stuck with me, and subsequently also Tennant, which, yeah, if you know anything about the Who stuff, that makes a lot of sense.
I don't know anything.
We're all flavors of geek.
Oh yeah, somebody's excited for your signed headshot.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, those always felt really awkward to do, but when I was doing like the conventions and stuff, they were like, "Why don't you have headshots to sign?" I was like, "But I'm a writer. I got books."
Yes.
But
yes, Cal. Totally.
I'm kind of photogenic. You can thank my Aunt Kathy.
You have great skin. You really do.
Also, some of it's the cheekbones too. My Aunt Kathy was the taboo girl in the 70s. She was and you know how people like just inhabit their jobs? Like you couldn't be around Kathy at family gatherings and have her not be like, working for the camera, baby, and like just like
she was a ham.
Oh God. Oh God, she was.
Oh, thank you, Lee. Yeah, we worked so I could not even count. I know. I'm sorry, T-Star. Okay. I'm gonna get into it. I've heard of it. I just don't know what it is, damn it. There's too much shit out there.
We are an inclusive cast. We have geeks and non-geeks and nerds and not nerds and Trekkie people and Doctor Who people and Babylon 5 people.
Oh, I do love me some Babylon 5 though. Yeah. Do I get any points, T-Star?
I mean, Babylon 5 is just some brilliantly written stuff.
Mm-hmm. So you just talked about like the inclusivity of the project. We should talk about that because that's part of what made this what it is, right? We're so passionate about it. Everybody, literally everybody on the cast and crew. Am I forgetting? I think I'm saying that correctly, is queer or like on this queer spectrum.
Yes, somewhere queer, non-binary, somewhere falling in between. Like I've been joking. I'm like, well, we did have one cis guy, but I'm not sure that I wasn't quite sure. Like Matthew,
he had lesbian energy.
He really did.
He really did.
I'm like, well, you're fine with all of us weirdos, so that's cool. And also, yeah, quilt bags. We were definitely quilt bag. That's one of my favorite acronyms. It's a different thing than it's a little easier to remember for some of us olds than LGBTQIA plus. So it takes all of the letters, rearranges it into a word, quilt bag, that gives you this image of this quilted bag that just has like that you can just kind of pull out all these different colors.
Yeah. I'm learning all kinds of shit today. That's great. That's really smart. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Quilt bag was, I forget who I think I might have gotten it from Lee Harrington. Or it might have been a panel I was on at a pagan convention where we just had like all of the people who didn't fit talk about gender. Before inclusive paranormal stuff. So tired of the same cis het white dudes in muscle shirts and cargo shorts. Like
dude bros.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Like people are just like, "What are you guys doing?" And I'm like, "We are trying to not just be another team of white dudes in tight black t-shirts shouting at ghosts."
Yeah. I mean, it's exhausting. I can't even watch what's on paranormal TV anymore. I mean, I still suck it up sometimes because I'm curious about their techniques and whatever. But now it's really bad because so many shows got canceled.
Oh,
So
see, I've got a great excuse. I don't watch it because if they go to a location that I've not been to before,
yeah,
it could spoil me for that location.
fair.
So on there've been one or two things I've caught only because somebody told me like they're investigating a place that you've already been to. So like there's a couple of Ghost Brothers things that I actually watched, and uh, something else with I think Dakota Layden, one of theirs, to just sort of like get a vibe for people that like seem like pretty cool people.
Yeah, they seem super cool, and they had an amazing Kickstarter recently as well. And they seem like they also want to take the self-production route and just like have that autonomy that we're really striving for, because it is true, and you know more than most, that they the networks just kill everything magic about anything that you do on any of these ghost hunts.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: is people are like, "You've been in this for so many years. Why don't you have your own show? Why don't you have your own show?" And I always resist the blunt, honest answer, which is, I have been pitching variations of my own show for, at this point, probably 20 years, and consistently. I mean, if it was just once and if it was just twice, but like consistently, the reason we get turned down is they don't want the, I quote, our audience does not find women intellectually credible. Our audience would not be able to follow a team led by someone. Could you pair up? Like, basically, if I wasn't following a guy around as a sidekick, they would not do it. No one wanted to fucking light it. And that is ridiculous, unfair, and I'm done with it. Just done.
Yeah. I mean, how many times does the industry need to hear that that audience that you think is going to, that's the only audience that's going to give you what you want is not necessarily the only audience that's going to, be a great viewership.
The
It's
default is not and should not be a straight white dude at this point. Like
really
there's such a world out there. There are so many people. Like, that's not to say that we have to like cut, you know, just make room at the table for everybody. Is all is
yeah,
there should be space for, because the world's not that simple. I mean, well, and that's also our approach to the paranormal.
right.
It's not black and white. It's not simple. It's not binary. It's not angels versus demons, or like there's good things that are going to possess you. You know, like it's not like I'm over by a demon like every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I think that's tired. That whole fear mongering kind of like, yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, a certain
Yeah,
person. We
well,
all know who it is.
yeah, yeah. Well, we all know who it is. Like, I don't want to smack talk. Like,
We
I
won't
try
say
to
it.
be people about it, but there are some things where it's like, I, it's the same advice I give people about psychics. As somebody who works as a psychic, if your bullshit meter's going off, trust it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I just think, so sorry, I'm just looking at this thing that popped up. It looks like we're getting some other feedback here, so I'm just pulling
Okay.
stuff up.
Good feedback, bad
Yeah,
feedback.
we're good. Yeah, all good.
Yeah.
The mainstream.
Realized that my flailing looked maybe like I was trying to like be somebody who like thinks that they're possessed, but I
I liked it.
I hope it didn't come across mocking.
Oh, I understand. Yeah.
Like once I can't see quite what I'm doing, and I'm like, no, like this is like the like, oh,
Yeah. More like
I'm
a
being
zombie situation.
attacked. Yeah, but I've got a tiny screen to try to do it on. So that
Yeah.
was bad. I apologize. That was not my intention.
Yes, and somebody just said, Oh, somebody just said something about the paranormal space being inherently liminal and queer, something like that. And
It is.
it is.
It is weird. Like, we use this word weird and like WYRD and like where all that stuff comes from. Like, there's a reason why a lot of your psychics and mediums and stuff are queer folk. They already inhabit a space in between. Like, it's not to say that straight folk don't have these abilities. Somebody who is queer, somebody who doesn't fit into the mainstream, has already had to have the internal struggle of, I'm not like everybody else.
Yeah.
Either they killed that part of themselves and are just like walking around trying to be something that they're not, or they embraced it. And if you embrace one thing about yourself that doesn't fit, you start to ask about the other parts that don't fit.
Right.
And go, maybe this is okay too. And I would say that that's a personal journey, but I've had that conversation with so many people where it's not necessarily that like queer people are somehow magically and inherently prone to be more sensitive. It's more that
we just got 20%. That's
cool.
awesome. That's amazing.
Yay.
Thank you, everyone. That's amazing. Yeah,
it's so hard to ask for money and to put like monetary value on stuff. So like, this is weird for me too, because I feel like I'm on a telethon.
Yeah, it does feel like that. I'm like, okay, who's on the line?
Let's see. We've got 12. We've got 12. Do I hear 13? How about 14? How about 15?
Yeah, we're like auctioneers.
That's not how I usually work. I'm just like, that's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, the cutting room floor stuff too. Like, I would say that the biggest tragedy with Paranormal State was the conversation between me and Lorraine Warren about a Ouija board. I spent 40 minutes on camera convincing Lorraine Warren that the Ouija board they found under the elder daughter's bed did not necessarily mean that this was the cause of the haunting, especially when Lorraine's initial walkthrough of the house said something completely different until we found that board, and suddenly now all demons and bad stuff. And I was like, could we just agree that like a symbol like this is sort of like, the meaning is really in the hand of the practitioner, so why don't we talk to the practitioner and find out what it means to her before we assume that every Ouija board everywhere is automatically a default elevator straight to hell. Like, it's just not.
It's not. And speaking of Ouija boards, not to go back to the telethon, but I'm gonna.
Okay.
We do have planchettes for our $55 reward, and they're going to be super cool. We have a super top secret sigil, one what's modified, but we've had one that we've used in some of our workings on these shows, and then it'll be a little bit different than that, and specifically for these planchettes. And they're really cool because I tested them out. I had a prototype, and they move around, so you could make your own Ouija board. Honestly, I've been told multiple times by people on the podcast that those are better than like the ones that you buy at the store, the ones that you like just make with a piece of paper.
Yeah, every spirit board that I used as a kid, because I did widely. I made myself. I hand lettered myself, and we actually used a slice of rose quartz from the Cleveland Natural History Museum as our planchette, because it was just the right.
You can see it. Yeah.
And it was just smooth enough to like scoot around and like just, yeah, that was, if you've read Haunting Experiences, that was how we were talking with Mikey the Ghost. You mentioned the physical sigil. So one of the things that I am really looking forward to, that I don't think anybody else has done, is introducing people to the concept of spoken sigils, like the verbal sigil of the chant that we all do, like that like use sound and almost words to encapsulate meanings and to focus and raise energy and direct intention.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite parts of filming. I mean, there's so many things that we did. We really fucking packed it in. I don't know. Are we allowed to say that? Can we say fucking?
We're on Facebook and we're on YouTube.
Oh. So let's maybe not say that. Sorry, anyone, if that's offensive.
I don't know. I mean, I swear all the time.
Oh, okay.
I had a high school English teacher who told me, like, who encouraged us to swear, who was like, a word is just a word, like it's
Yeah,
fine.
that's how I feel, but I don't want to offend anybody.
That's
Oh, shit, that's my phone. Sorry about that, guys.
Hopefully we don't get taken down because that's recognizable music.
No, it was the ringtone. Don't worry.
Okay. I've got a David Bowie track as my alarm on one of these things from Labyrinth,
Nice.
and yeah, I've paid Bowie a couple of times because it's gone off live stream here and there. Not that I mind, like, you know, Duncan is a very cool person, and I'm pretty sure it goes to him now.
Yeah. You were saying, oh yeah, the sigil and how we've been doing all these different experiments, and I think we should talk about that a little bit because I feel like summoning spirits, we bring matter and go sending tools into the summoning space. Yes.
Not to spoil it, but yes, absolutely. So let me tell you that the number of times I have tried to convince the various crews that I work with, where I'm like, I summon spirits as part of my practice. I am pretty happy to do one of those things, call up some people, and we can actually do like point all the investigative tools at it. And they're like, is that necromancy? And I'm like, technically, maybe white necromancy, if you think of the sense of like, well, actually more gray because it's just spirits, white's bones, black's bodies, red's blood. But
In case you were wondering.
Just if you're wondering, I know nothing about necromancy. What do you mean? Just your friend vampire. I don't do anything weird at all. I am simply here in my apothecary nook.
Yeah, which is badass. Would they turn you down when you asked that on network?
Repeatedly. Well, if it's
why wouldn't they say yes?
If it's too weird, okay. So the funny thing is usually the teams are all for it, and then the director's kind of like, not sure how I'll shoot this, and then a producer is like, what are we doing? And then if it gets past the producer, who's usually way too many times the producer isn't even into this stuff. If it gets past the producer, the network is like, no, our audience will not understand that. Like,
do you want to see weird shit or not? I don't understand.
No,
I mean, I do and I don't.
I was getting really frustrated because Jack's pretty open to a lot of like weird stuff, and like and Katrina is always on board for any wacky stuff I do, because Katrina knows me. Like it might sound weird, but it'll work.
Mm-hmm.
And then pretty consistently, like even when like with one of the portals things, side projects, I was like, I can't travel due to COVID, but I could remote view in, and they were for it, and it went all the way up, and then the network was like, no, must be on site. This is the thing. We expect Belanger the medium to be walking around with a blindfold, and that's like you're a character to them. Like you're just like, and if you deviate out of that, because I'm like, I am certainly a spirit person who walks around a place blindfolded and can do that, and also I summon spirits, and also I do energy work, and also I'm a vampire. I also sing music, if you haven't noticed, and write books. Like
it's just the nature of those networks, and it sucks because it's across the board. It's not just in the paranormal space, it's in every space. I mean, people say a lot lately, that more feminist content is coming forward, and it is, and I'm so happy. And there's more queer content than there ever was. I'm so excited about how many queer shows there are, but it's still
push for it. Like you really.
Yes, I was just gonna say you have to push, and usually those shows, like 9 times out of 10, sometimes like 200 times out of 201 or something, they said no, and they had to raise their own funds or whatever to get it like started.
And they also will hold it to a different standard, where like if it didn't perform like really knock it out of the park, like way better than anything else, they will always default to an old standby.
Yeah. Like, meanwhile, like Michael Bay is making a movie every fucking day. That's so bad. Sorry if Michael Bay is here, but he's not. He's definitely
robots. Yep. Thank you for destroying my childhood.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a big issue, and we hope that I'll speak for myself. I hope that we can be sort of a salve for that almost, that especially people who are really into the paranormal, I hope that we're able to be, fill a void of every time I don't know how y'all feel, but every time I leave watching paranormal shows, I feel like, ugh, that was so not satisfying, because I feel like they left things out and they're just trying to pick pieces apart and edit them together to make it like, ooh, that was scary.
Or they'll tell the expected story and gloss over what might be much more interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes the more interesting story is there's nothing there that is actually paranormal, but why did people think there was?
Mm-hmm.
That's the story too. Like there's a lot that goes into that. And I
Totally.
mean, I also inhabit the gaming space, and which these days involves a lot of AP actual plays and streamer stuff. And I am it sucks that it's a necessity, but it is also this amazing opportunity that we live at this intersection of technology and desire, where we have the means to do these things, where it is so much easier to film stuff, to capture stuff, to share it. We have the internet, we have platforms, and we don't necessarily need the networks. It's a little bit like indie publishing as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, it is.
You've got the big publishers, and they used to be the only way you would ever get a book out where people could see it. Uh, also, also inhabit publishing, and I can't even tell you, like, just the draconian process of back in the day. If you self-published, first of all, there was the stigma of like, oh, well, you're not good enough to like go get this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Physically publish the books, you would have to have a space to store the books, and then you would have to cozy up to a distributor to get the book in the bookstores, because the bookstores would not deal with an individual. They usually would only deal with a certain specific set of publishers, and if not that, then one of the distributors like Ingram. And it's not like you could walk in and be like, I'm an author, here's my book. Mostly a bookstore would be like, that's great, and they would throw it in the trash. Same with library. I'm an author, here's my book, that's nice, throw it in the trash, because you weren't official, and that's changing.
It is changing. And it's changing rapidly in the film industry too, because basically it used to cost $1 gajillion to make a movie, and now it doesn't. It just doesn't, because technology has evolved so much. But yes, what is this question?
What was the catalyst for you both to come together and finally get this show created? I say your awakening, Fen.
I say my awakening. Yeah, I think that the book, for those of you who have read the Psychic Vampire Codex, if you'll know this term, the beacon, I feel like the book was the beacon. It, was in a limb of the beacon, so to speak. And that just kind of started the whole thing. And a bunch of very unusual, and I have had a very unusual life already prior to Michelle Belanger, but like exceptionally unusual things started to happen to me after I read that book. And that later on, I knew that that was the beginning of an awakening. I didn't know in the time. I just thought, what the fuck?
One of my most intentional and most like out in the world acts of magic was writing that book. Like every single word and phrase, like everything is chosen. It is an act of magic, and the magic there is, if the first and simplest intention is, I want this book to jump out at anyone who needs it. And then the second intention is, I want them to be able to open to where they need to be in the book. So like if you just open it, like the idea that it'll just sort of like guide you to it. And I want it to be a book that helps them find themselves, that doesn't tell them who to be or what to do. But so I put enough magic in I want this book to leap out at the people who need it, that the number of reports of people who literally had the book fall on their heads at a bookstore was not just or 2 or 3. And I was just like, magic is very literal.
Sometimes, yes, and most of the time, yes. Yeah. So what do we got here? Are there any tentative plans for? Yes. So yes and no. Okay.
Yes and no. It depends on some of us have limitations. There's not a lot of travel I can do anymore.
Yes. So on one hand, within the framework of the Kickstarter, and we realized this is a stretch. That's why it's called a stretch goal. There
Yeah.
is a stretch goal that is, I don't know, further up, and it's the Scooby van one. So basically, we would get a Scooby van, and then we would go, location to location, and the people who pledge, would be able to choose where we go and what kind of in-person events we would do. In those cases, we would probably have Michelle join remotely.
Yeah,
and then
most I'm
Yeah.
just gonna put that out there, because I don't know that you can't see the open heart surgery scars so well. My onc always hides it, but I am the survivor of multiple open heart surgeries as a child, so I am very high risk at this point. I'm 50.
Yes, and we don't want anything to happen to Uncle Michelle.
Yep.
What have been surprising ethical decisions during this process?
Oh, wow. I mean, one that people often overlook is, I summon spirits and I ask them to participate, but it's still their choice. It's not like I'm compelling them to do anything. So for me, like, one big ethical thing is that people will overlook on a lot of ghost shows is ghosts are people too. It's not just a cute sticker. Needed to get their consent. And when the team, when we hit a juncture where it was pretty clear that I needed to kind of like hook the team up with some of the spirits that I work with directly. And I needed 3 who were willing to do that. And I could have just been like, you, and you, and tell them to do that. But that's not how you make friends.
No, I think about that all the time.
That's not how you work with family. And these are close friends, close family. So I had to find who was willing to do this difficult thing and maybe be on camera and maybe have names. Names are really important to a lot of spirits. Out there, everybody's going to have some access to at least that one name.
Yeah. I mean, my wife kind of makes fun of me sometimes when I'm watching the paranormal TV shows, and I'll pause it and I'll be like, this is ridiculous, because I say the same thing over and over again. Like, would you ever walk into someone's house and treat them the way that these dude bros are treating the spirits of that house, whether they're what you define as good or bad or not? Be polite. Introduce yourself before you're like, bleh.
Ethical
Yeah,
thing.
dance for me.
The other ethical thing was hiring. So this was your journey, and you had agreed and I had agreed, but we needed more than just like us to make it a actually thing that we were filming. There was a point where you had to hire people and give them full disclosure of what kind of rabbit hole they were going down,
which was a hilarious process, and we lost a few, to be honest. Yeah.
Well, and you can say we are investigating this stuff, but you have to also say, like, you are going to be in situations where you are exposed to energy work and magic and perceptions that are very likely to change you, that may change the way that you look at reality. They will affect you in ways beyond your physical body that you may not be prepared for. We need you to be able to tell us if you're feeling overwhelmed, feeling uncomfortable. We need you to be able to hold really good boundaries, because that's how people get screwed up in this stuff. If they're not able to be like, I don't feel okay, and communicate about it. And also, BTW, this is an initiatory experience. Like, to get involved with this, to just even be a spectator, it is going to light a fire in you, in your life. Like, things will change. And that's not bragging, that's not hubris, that's just the reality. So you must be prepared for that. And if you're not willing to sign on to that, please don't sign on to this project.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'll say the paperwork for season 1 for both shows was pretty hefty. And there was some really funny, like, verbiage in there about like, hey, like consensual vampire feedings and like just all this stuff that's in no contracts ever. And I had a lot of people who are just like, I don't think I can do this. And so they didn't make the cut. And
don't thank
you. No
for
worries.
yourself, because this is a very deep rabbit hole and not everybody really wants to be swimming in this end of the pool.
Yeah.
There are sharks and other things. Some of them are Cthulhu, not literally.
Yeah. Right. Yes. when we had a couple
So
people.
anyway,
We had a couple people who came in who, well, one in particular, about I won't say names, who came in who really was just thinking that they would be very much like having this topical experience, that they were just going to be, in the camera department. And they very quickly understood within like the first, I don't know, 48 hours even, that was not going to be the case, that they were also going to be part of the initiatory experience. And I think that was amazing for me to watch someone go from skeptic, topical, surface to like this, subtle believer in the paranormal.
Yeah. Well, and it's not like you're going to necessarily have this experience and come out believing in ghosts, because it's not as simple as that. You're going to have this experience and come out questioning the boundaries of what we define as reality, because none of it is simple.
Yeah. Yeah. That's well said. Yeah. It's not just about ghosts. I mean, even if we try to veer it that way,
Yeah.
there are times where we're like, oh, this is what we're going to do. And then because of the nature of the initiatory experience, it kind of takes us wherever it wants to take us. And then we're like, what is happening?
I remember when you were like, should we have like an outline, like an idea of like what to do? And I'm like, how about everybody just descends on Inspiration House? Like, okay, so I have 2 residences. We're in one of them, and then the other one is a 150-plus-year-old haunted house in Oberlin, Ohio. And it partly exists so that I have a place to run. Well, pre-pandemic, I had a place to run classes that wasn't the place where I physically sleep all the time, but also was a place to film. If things so like the Nostradamus thing, we filmed there. There's a couple of other little things we filmed. And I was like, all right, well, the whole film crew can come over. We've got this whole location. It is also nicely haunted, so there's going to be activity.
Nicely haunted.
It's a cozy haunting. Like,
it is mostly.
Yeah, mostly. Like 89% of what's going on there is just sweet old people who don't want to move out. Love them. And then there's I don't know what that is, but I don't know what that is.
I don't know what that is. Yeah, well,
I still don't know what that is. That's a big like.
That's something.
That's something.
I'll say I picked the wrong bedroom. That's what I'll say.
I mean, that I do know what that is, and that's just like a psychic stain from.
Oh, right, yeah, that one. But we lost that comment.
But literally, it was just let's put everybody under one roof and see what happens.
Yeah, cozy.
So the best example of the cozy haunting and Inspiration House is before we started being really clear on all of the paperwork and websites that it is fucking haunted. Pardon my French. We had somebody stay there who was doing like an art thing at Oberlin. Oberlin's this big art school. And so they were staying by themselves in this house for, I think, 2 weeks or so. It was late, like September one year. And Airbnb is the platform that we use because of insurance and stuff. And they can message you sort of like where everybody can see it, or like in the back end. And most of the people at that point who had haunting experiences would be like at the back end. So we get this message of like, hey, I think, well, I'm pretty sure your house is haunted. And here's the experience that I had. She had a long day. It was warm during the day, typical like late fall for Ohio. So it was warm during the day. It got really cold at night. She had opened all the windows. She's on the first floor. She fell asleep on one of the couches. And she woke up, and it had gotten dark, and it had gotten real cold. And she is the only person in the house, someone had gone around and closed all the windows and tucked her in with a blanket that had been over on the other couch.
That's cozy.
That's a cozy haunting.
Cozy haunting.
There's an old widow who lived in the house until she was in her 90s. She died in the house. Not of any nefarious things, just because she was in her 90s. And she has no desire to leave. And she will mom you to death.
Like, yeah.
She's
to death.
Yeah. No, well, no, not like that.
I know.
It's not like, once you are here, you will never leave. You will be my precious, pretty little dollies. She's not like that. She's literally tuck you in at night and check to see if you're okay.
Yes, I want to hear your answer to this before I say anything, because I have my opinion.
Okay, we've got some interesting words from the obelisk during our Owensboro investigation, but some people are critical of the device. I would like to hear your thoughts about the obelisk. I have some criticisms of the device as well, and it's actually sort of the same criticisms that my friend Damian Williams has about AI. Anything that is programmed is always going to carry the biases of the people who programmed it.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about an obelisk is whatever program is governing the randomized element of what triggers the words, there's going to be implicit bias in that. You can't remove that because people made it. That's just how that stuff works. The other one is there's only a certain limited bank of words. And it would be very easy to leave certain words out consciously or unconsciously. So you are limited to the way in which a person programmed this to be random, and it will never truly be random. And also, you have only a limited bank of words. And simply put, if the words you put into something like that are demon, haunted, scare, run, help,
Yeah.
you don't give the ghost a chance to say teddy bear. Like there's things. So there are limitations with that. I mean, that said, like I did a deck of cards that's sort of the same concept of just like there's 56 words, with the knowledge that there's always words that are going to be excluded. It's not a perfect device. So I think the thing to keep in mind with all of the equipment that we use, all of it has limitations. All of it is fallible, whether it's a psychic reading a location, whether it's your K2 meter, whether it's your obelisk. People are what are making those work. People are a lens through which any of this stuff manifests. All of us have a bias, whether we mean to or not. And we always have to take all of the results and look at the bigger picture, and not assume that any one of these tools is always 100% right.
Yeah,
It's just,
I agree.
it's not.
Yeah, I agree. I do think during that particular investigation, some words that seemed to not be words that should be in the bank came up. And I think that, I don't want to say anything, but I think that was what was so curious, because they were names. So I don't know. And that happened another time in our in the other show, where we were using a device. I guess I'll just say it because I'm not giving you any information, but we were using a spirit box, and the spirit box was doing something that a spirit box does not do. So
I will say my least favorite application of an obelisk ever was on Conjuring Kesha, because it was incredibly distracting.
Yes.
Like every time we would start to be doing something, the obelisk would be like, would shout something out, and it would just derail what else we were doing. Something that like I often encourage people to do. There are certain points in investigations where it's kind of fun to like throw all of your equipment at it all at once. But I think it's a good idea to get a baseline with each piece of equipment. So if you have the time, the luxury of the time, spend some time with only the obelisk, and then spend some time, and like that is the only thing that you're focusing on. Figure out like, how does this thing react in the different locations in the space? You've got that data point. Now go with something else. Does you go off in the same spots? The obelisk was also talking to you. That's a data point of interest.
Yeah, I do think it's also like calibrating your divination tools as well.
Yeah.
Whoever owns the obelisk or owns the MF also has a relationship with that device.
That is a really important thing. So I tend to be skeptical of most EVPs. And back in the day, there was a husband and wife team. Anybody who's older will know immediately who I'm talking about. Who were known as like the EVP people. And Debbie Constantino, I'd heard, you hear things about people, and there's a lot of back chatter. There's a lot of backbiting, especially back then. Like everybody was all competitive. So I was at an event where I was going to be with the Constantinos, and everybody's like, "Oh, they're always faking," is what I heard. And I was like, "Well, I don't know them, so that doesn't seem fair to say." I sat next to Debbie as she was doing stuff at Mansfield Reformatory, and I'm not dumb. I was not born yesterday. I actually started off with paranormal teams as a debunker, which was long enough before anybody was filming it that, like, yeah, so we actually had a little occult society out here in Northeast Ohio. It was Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Michigan. We would get together and we would debunk places and mediums and psychics and folks that we felt were taking advantage of people, up to and including going undercover. We were very full of ourselves, but but so like I know what to look for like the sleight of hand and stuff. My opinion, my continued opinion on Debbie was, I don't think that those EVPs would have happened for anyone but her. Not because she was good at faking them, but because that happened to be her tool. Like she was a type of like lightning rod for that activity, and it came through. That was her. That was her magical item. Like that was her wand.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I think you brought up a good point about the accuracy and making sure that we're not faking anything. And I think that it's important to reiterate that we really, really didn't fake a damn thing in this. And we were super clear about that multiple times on camera. And we know that many people on the big network shows are faking. I mean, we see it all the time. I hear it all the time through various channels. So,
I mean, well, that's the tail end of Paranormal State. The production company and directors would be like, "We need you to get evidence. We need you to get evidence." And everybody's had that job where they're the official rule is one thing, but then they say like, "We need you to do this," and what they're telling you to do is to break the rules. And their idea was, if you don't get evidence, we'll get canceled. And we're like, well, there's nothing is happening. And they're like, but you need to get evidence. Wink, wink. You know what I mean?
yeah.
And I had a 45-minute conversation in the middle of an investigation with one guy, who is on my I'm not working with you again list. Know who you are and you know what you did. Who just straight up at that point was like, ratings are down. I need you to, here's the backstory. I need you to work this into your psychic rating. And I was like, no, that's not how this works. And he's like, well, somebody's telling you this stuff anyway. Like they have to be. And I'm like, they really aren't. Like, for me, I do this because I want to understand why it works the way it works. Like I know how it feels. I know what I'm doing internally. But there is a kid who got a 35 on the ACT and was offered full ride scholarships at pretty much every science department like I applied to. Who, like, that science nerd is like, but how would I like how does that work? Like how does physics explain it? Physics doesn't explain it the way that I like and so I'm here being like, let's do it over and over and over again. How am I telling somebody the color of their shirt? How am I sitting in my closet that is like my recording studio now and describing the exact shape, weight, and hand-hewn texture of the stones in a fence? Like, I still don't know what state Katrina was in.
Yeah. There's only so far we can go. There's more that we don't know than we do know, is the simplest way to put it.
But I would say for me, one of the drives to do things independently is I am sick to death of the pressure to fake stuff. That said, I also recognize if you don't want to believe what we're doing, I'll be honest. If I was not the person doing the readings in some cases, I wouldn't believe it. Like there's stuff that just came through on Travel the Dead, and it's me. Like that's me on the screen doing it, and I'm watching it going, no.
Did I do that?
Oh,
Was that it?
how did that happen? And I know how it happened, but like the brain still boggles at it, and that's the glory of this. Like, how?
Yeah, that's what's so compelling about it. Do you want? Oh, yeah, that's not
Yes,
it. There was a
do the thing, do the thing.
yes.
A
Do
kids
you,
have things. We want to explore stuff, but we unfortunately live in a capitalistic society that is driven by the almighty dollar, so we need some of that.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But the wonder.
The wonder. Yes. No, that's something that you said early on when we were crafting what we wanted the show to be like. That was one of the first words you used.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to get answers. Like, I take pride in the fact that I wrote a book that if you read it all the way through and it speaks to you, you're going to come away with more questions than answers. Because I think that's one of the fundamental reasons why we live and do the things that we do. We ask questions, we wonder, we are astounded, we are awestruck about our experiences and about the world that we live in. We see the mystery and the whimsy and then just the extraordinary possibility. And sharing our appreciation of that, our experience of that, and taking people on these amazing quests to, if not answer like the question, at least get somewhere where we're comfortable asking the question.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I mean that's really been we speaking of our contracts and stuff, we also had a bunch of paperwork that was like with our mission and those some of those words that you just used, especially wonder, and keeping that top of mind that this isn't as much about making a show. Of course, there are the stresses that come with making any show. It's just stressful. It is. That's the name of the game.
Yeah.
But not just focusing on that, but having times where we can surrender to the experience, which is a fucking wild ride.
Yeah, and sometimes it means at like 3 a.m. you're curled up in a ball on the floor of my ritual chamber crying.
Crying. I'm not saying who.
So, which,
All
I mean,
right.
good on you. That's an incredibly vulnerable moment to share. Like
It's gonna be rough. It's gonna be rough.
it's not always easy. Like
Yeah.
the questions that it raises about like who we are and what we are, what's our place in the universe, what is the shape of the universe? Like, does any of it have any meaning? Will we ever actually find answers? Because when I first, I'm old. I'm not going to pretend that I'm not, like, just in this physical incarnation. I'm 50 now. I know not as old as many of you, but like old enough at this point that I've been doing this long enough that back in the 70s, like people were still trying to chase the holy grail of evidence, convinced that if they could get that perfect EVP, if they could get that perfect ghost photo, if they could get that one thing, capture a UFO on camera, get Bigfoot's butt hair, they could prove to everyone that this is real. And what I've learned is belief is incredibly personal, and it's not that simple. Most people believe what they believe regardless of evidence, both to their benefit and also to their detriment.
Yeah.
So when we are exploring a liminal space of belief, it's about the people, and it's about the experience, and it's about the questions. And it should never be about making you believe what I believe.
Mm-hmm.
It should be a dialogue, a sharing, a kind of communion of like, this is what I believe. What do you believe? Maybe if we compare that, we'll get a better sense of what's actually out there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that goes along with everything that we said before about how we're trying to turn this whole thing on its head, the whole paranormal TV paradigm sort of on its head, where we're looking at it from all of these different perspectives through these different lenses to give to offer something that's different and allow there to be nuances like that as well, which is, it's just one formula that we see in every show mostly.
Well, but that's the thing. Like you don't get that discourse. You don't get that dialogue if it's always going to be, it's always a demon. It's always solved with holy.
Always a demon.
On the sage. We're not even going to have the conversation about how complicated and problematic sage is. Like, please stop calling it smudging. Like, that's a whole thing.
Yeah.
Like, just if we only tell one story, how do we grow?
Yeah. Agreed. I mean, how do we ever evolve? We're just going to be the same, like Stepford wives forever.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
and then everybody who doesn't fit into that story is just going to be sitting there going, this isn't for me.
mhm.
I have no place here. I don't fit here. Like, representation matters.
Yes, that's it. That's the whole enchilada. Although I do want Bigfoot's butt hair to be put on a t-shirt or something.
I will often rattle off things like that off the cuff. Not every ghost is a dog fart was also another, or sorry, not every dog fart is a ghost.
Not every dog fart is a ghost.
Yeah,
Yes, gotcha. Yes,
that was a thing that.
those dogs, they do be farting. All
Well,
right.
it's a thing where people are like, I smell something. It must be a demon. I'm like, your dog is gassy. It's okay.
It's just your dog's gas. I do have to read the Dictionary of Demons. I haven't gotten to that one yet. I've been a bit busy creating 2 shows, so
There's an audiobook.
Is it really? How is that possible?
Some, bless her heart. The funny thing is they didn't tell me they were doing an audiobook. I was joking. I'm like, how would somebody even do this? Because the vast majority of these are literally typos in medieval manuscripts. Like, some of them are just solid consonants. And it's the stories that have like built up around them, like that now we're like, oh, this is totally a demon. I'm like, no, literally, like Monk Bob slipped, and now we think that that's actually a demon. That's supposed to be like this person over here. So this person who had, she fortunately had a background in several different languages. And so she had to come up with a way to pronounce many of these completely unpronounceable names.
Amazing.
Some of them, definitely have like a Latin background. Some of them are Greek. Many of them are genuinely, they're from what's, known as barbarous words. Like, they're kind of hermetic. They're gibberish from a time when there was a polyglot culture in the ancient Mediterranean. And so they are literally Hittite and Hurrian and Hebrew and Coptic Egyptian and like just sort of all mushed together.
Yeah.
Sometimes stuff that people just made up that sounded like something it's not language. In many cases, they're actually, it's partly where I got the idea for verbal sigils. Like
I was just gonna say that. Yeah.
Where it sounds like something, and the point at which it tricks your brain into sounding like the thing that you're focusing on, but it's still not language. So now it's got soft boundaries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's a power in that. There's an ancient magical technique all around it. But now we've got like these names that came from it. I mean, that's not all the demon names, but it's some of them. And our culture is more about clearly delineated labels. So our default assumption is like, this is a demon who actually existed and this is his name. No, it's not that simple.
Yeah.
That's really pretty much like, it's not that simple. That's everything. Like, that is the answer. It is literally, it's never that simple.
Not that simple.
How much time do you have to talk about the complexities? Because it's not that simple.
Yeah, we don't have that much time because we are done now, I think.
Oh, we're at 9:08. Oh, I figured that we would just sit here and natter on for forever because I know how we both are.
Yes. I don't know if we're, is anybody telling us that we're allowed to or not allowed to?
I mean,
do we have a moderator?
We sort of do, we sort of don't. I in my head, I had set aside till like about a quarter after.
Okay, good.
There's enough wildfire smoke where I'm at here in Northeast Ohio, because Quebec is on fire and there's a fire in Michigan. Like, we've got wildfires all around us. We've got a lot of secondhand smoke, and I suspect that by a quarter after 9, my voice will be done.
I mean, we can keep going. There was one comment, and it was like a paragraph that we missed.
Huge thing.
And you missed it. Yeah, I don't know if
I couldn't read it fast enough. Also, I was busy talking.
Yeah, I think it was pretty fast. It didn't stay very long. There it is.
I got a house for you, but I don't know if my family will let you in. It's on State Route 511 in Oberlin, Ohio, and it is on top of a vortex. We had translucent black smoke in there. There was a close figure that when he saw the house is getting ready to be turned over to the state, I'm very worried about the next family coming in and having really bad things happen because of what happened to my family there. I believe that there's that whole stretch. First of all, Ohio is haunted, y'all.
Sure
If you
is.
actually look at the number of paranormal investigators, paranormal podcasts, paranormal locations, witchcraft museums, and everything else, or people who came from Ohio who are now like off doing their thing, like it is a very haunted state. I know lots of other states are like, we are the most haunted state. Ohio's freaking weird. They named our Lake Erie for a reason. Not literally, that's more complicated, but like it.
It's not simple.
I grew up in a freaking Stephen King novel. I remember at one point like walking around, we anyway, everything's very weird out here. Oberlin is quite weird. A lot of the old houses are weird. I believe there's some funky stuff going on with the land. If I pass near that area, I will give some thoughts, because it's also possible to remotely clear a place, or at least to sort of like soothe what's going on there. It's completely possible to have a conversation with spirits in a location. You don't have to physically be there. If once you get a handle on remote viewing, you realize distance is a meat suit thing, and it's kind of illusory, which is a whole head trip all by itself.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a rabbit hole.
Let's see. Have you had an investigation where you've asked the spirits which tool they prefer and they respond? Yes. Yeah. Okay, so the spirits that I work with, my Keprian disembodied, are opinionated. They have some things that they just flatly refuse to do. They don't show up on a lot of the shows. They refuse to participate in most paranormal TV. They find it demeaning. And even the ones that are usually like got my back and do protective stuff, when I was doing Paranormal State, they were like, no, you are on your own if you're doing this. Like, I do not want part of the dog and pony show. Like, this is damn, don't ask me to go.
Fair enough.
When I use spirit boards, they get incredibly frustrated because it's sort of like texting with an old Nokia phone.
It's like,
like, especially when they're like, you can hear me, right? Yeah. Why are we doing this? For 5 people who can't.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's always some that are like, nope, not that. Only a few spirits that I personally work with can stand like the ghost box or spirit box, the things that have like the noise. And it seems to be more like when those are just like shouting into a whole space. I have gotten very different reactions and responses when it's through headphones. So I don't know what about the static is. To be fair, it distracts me too. Like, it drives me straight up a wall. I'm very, this is probably not a news flash. I'm very hypersensitive to like sounds and scents. Like I'm just, I don't like it.
I don't like it.
I post on that one. Like, that one, just quickest way to drive me out of the room is to turn one of those things on.
Yeah. I think that's a great question though, because it's not always the tools, especially, I don't want to say too much again. I know it's 15 times, but with the disembodied that you work with, one of which I had the pleasure, unique experience of exchanging energy with, and that being made it very clear what they liked and didn't like, and it was abundantly clear. So not even divination tools or technological devices. It was just like music and your animals, and just like very, like you said, very opinionated.
Well, and people will sometimes ask me like, why does one spirit at a location appear to people versus
the hunt for Bigfoot butt hairs.
My exes, I'm pretty sure I just need to go sorting through his shower.
Oh boy.
But so in my experience, sometimes a place is haunted, and some people can go for like the entire time they live there and not have an experience. And they're like, well, does that mean it's not haunted? And I'm like, it just means the spirits in you do like just don't inhabit the same space, or are not, like, there's something that doesn't intersect. And there's some people where like stuff will happen around them all the time, and then occasionally like there's spirits that don't want to talk to me. I am not the person they want to talk to. They don't resonate with me. If we passed one another on the street, we would keep walking. And I think that's something to keep in mind is we don't always connect. And it's not because there's nothing to connect to. It's that it is unreasonable to assume that everything out there wants to have a conversation with you.
Fair. I mean, does every human in a meat suit want to have a conversation with you?
And personality plays a really big role in that. Oh, that
Yeah.
is not a silly comment at all.
No, not silly.
So the question, have you ever encountered spirits of pets? Absolutely.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so Inspiration House, this is probably short of photographic evidence. This was one of the coolest bits of, like, this is proof. The folks who live next door to Inspiration House, she has an older son who is special needs. And he, as we were moving in, came up and he was like, he was asking about the dog. He wanted to know about the dog that he saw in the window. And at that point, I had started to get a sense that there was a canine spirit at the house. And I'd been researching to see, like, you know, who lived in the house with dogs. And I had managed to find like a 1905 American Kennel Association registration for Nick Gleam, the English setter. And like they described this, and it belonged to the people. So it lived, that dog lived on the property. So the next door neighbor's kid comes over and is asking about the dog. And there's no dog, like nobody even been in the house. So he's describing the dog. He describes down to the color this particular breed of dog, and he sees him in the window all the time. And there's no reason why he would have made it up. He's not the only person. So yeah, people regularly experience a couple of different canine spirits at Inspiration House. I have cat ghosts that are both cats that I've had before, and cats being cats, there's at least one cat ghost. I'm like, you have never been my pet. You're just here because I like cats, aren't you? You're like, you're just here, moved on in, crawled up on things, just being a cat. As far as I can tell, with cats, there's no difference. Alive or dead, they're just being a cat.
They're just being a cat. Yeah, I feel like at one point, maybe not on these projects, I feel like they were, but there was a meow that came through, and that was like the only thing that came through. It was like a crisp meow.
Yeah, no, there's at least one cat at Inspiration House. Much less likely to like crawl up on people. There's a little terrier sized dog that people, I know it sounded creepy at first because like we can hear these little claws on the hardwood, and then like little claws on the side of the king bed, and then the feel. And fortunately, the person had pets, so like they were familiar with the feel of a small dog crawling in bed with you.
Yeah.
And didn't conclude that it was a gremlin or a demon. But it just, yeah, absolutely. I believe that animals have spirits as much as people do. I believe in many ways they're less complicated about it than we are, and have encountered quite a few. Horse spirits, dog. I think it is easier to perceive, and there's more of an impetus to communicate for domesticated animals that are companion animals, because they're used to people, like they know.
Yeah.
In the same way that, you know, a stray dog will come up to a human because that's part of how they socialize now. I was less inclined to expect a raccoon spirit to come up to me outside of very unusual circumstances or very specific circumstances.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say in my experience, it's been domestic animal. I mean, there's never been, I'm trying to think. I don't think I've ever had anything that was sort of like a wild animal. It was always like someone's cat or someone's dog or someone's, I don't know, pet.
Yeah.
mouse or something. I don't know.
Now, for like the real deep dive with that question, because I've had people ask me this, like, why do people not experience some dinosaurs? How do you know you haven't? Because how do you have context to identify that as anything other than like this weird big primal thing that's stomping around somewhere? Like, would you conclude it was a dinosaur? What would you make of that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like how would you interpret that? In the same way that people are like, well, if you have past lives, did you have a past life as a bee? I'm like, well, okay, first of all, bees don't even see in the same spectrum that we do. Like
Yeah.
a bee body, like how would your brain process that? Like what would those memories look like?
Right.
Conclusions would you draw if you had those memories? Like how would you even put that into context in
Yeah.
your human experience as you were living it right now?
It wouldn't. Yeah. There's none.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
It'd
like
be like a little blip of a thing
yeah,
too.
you're like, here's this really weird thing, I don't understand it. Or you'd be like, well, that's strange. Must have been the roast beef sandwich I ate at lunch.
Must have been my dog's gas.
Yeah.
Well, should we wrap it up? Thank you all for your questions. Oh, that's not.
Hey, look, that's Kat being like, hey, we're wrapping up now.
We're wrapping up. All right. So I'll say on my end that just thank you so much to everybody who's here and who's been involved. It's been such a wild ride to go on these adventures, but then a different kind of wild ride to watch all of you donate and share and spread the word. Because I'm hoping it's because you're excited to see these shows. You know, I mean, I'm excited to see these shows. So I hope that y'all feel that and that that sincerity that we have to bring really unique content to the screen. So,
I mean, for me, I know for most people, money is tight. If you're like me, you resent that our society is built around it in order to function.
oh,
I deeply resent it. If
same.
you, my first rule is if you do not have money for yourself, do not put money into this.
Definitely
Don't feel bad about that. You can help, and in some ways, it is even more like as much help as any kind of monetary stuff. Just put it out into the world. Retweet, comment, share, whatever. I know you're immediately going to be like, but I don't have much of a following like me and my 6 friends. That doesn't matter. Word of mouth is gold.
Everything. Yeah.
Because I don't know if you know the story about Bicolus Diccolus and how we lost the Time War, but there was a phenomenon that happened most recently in publishing where just a random account started talking about a book and it rocketed it to the New York Times bestseller list. And it's a little novella that had been out for a couple of years. It is unheard of. It is just literally the account is Bicolus Diccolus. Like that was the name of the account. So we live in a reality where USA Today and the New York Times had to do a little think piece about Bicolus Diccolus. And the moral story is the things that we love, when we talk about them to the people who are invested with us, it makes them interested in what we love. At the very least, they want to see like why is this important to the person who is important to me? And that means more than anything else. Like sharing the journey, sharing the wonder. Don't feel like it's just money in the hat. Absolutely hitting that stretch goal is important. Actually, like getting that 66K, and if you do TV stuff, that is like buying coffee. Like
literally. Yeah, teeny
but,
tiny drop in the bucket.
Yeah, but don't feel bad if you can't. Everything you do helps. Just showing up and being here. Thank you.
Yes, seriously. I mean, our heart. Again, I have to speak for myself, but I think I can speak for everyone else. When our hearts were really warmed this morning and this afternoon, when it was just like they were rolling in, and people had such wonderful comments to say. So we're pumped. Like we are like primed and ready to make these shows for you, and we're really excited that you're excited too. Is that the